Yo, what's up, man? I wanted to expand a little bit tonight on the idea that justice always exists in God's world, like in God's reality or in God's kingdom, which is this kingdom we live in, but we live in another conscious reality, right? So that God's kingdom is our subconscious reality. Our subconscious reality, right? That's what God's kingdom is. The unity of all of us within the subconscious mind, the universal conscience. That is who we are. We're one unit in the subconscious mind. Subconscious mind. Not subconscious. Subconscious mind. So God is real in everyone, in every person, in every being, in everything. God is present in the deeper layers of subconscious, of our subconscious. So it's a presence that isn't always felt for obvious reasons. It's in your subconscious, right? So, but God's kingdom is a kingdom where justice already exists everywhere. There's no place, there's nothing, there's nowhere where justice isn't a reality. And justice is basically like a balancing act. Like, you get what you deserve, right? You create what you are. And that's basically what the law is. We create what we are. We're all creators whether we want to be or not. So you're always creating with your conscious mind and in your subconscious. So all your thoughts, everything that you do, all your actions, all your thoughts, all your intentions, all your intuitions are creating. They're creators. And that creation reaps what it sows. So whatever you create, that's what you're getting in return. But then there's also that's kind of the obvious. That's kind of like instant karma, right? So it's, you're thinking negative, bad, harmful things, you're going to feel bad. You're thinking great, uplifting things, loving things, you're going to feel good. That's kind of the obvious way to look at it. But then there's a much deeper level to that, because what happens to the innocent that don't, and in essence, we're all innocent because we all lack knowledge. We're all like kids in a sense. Sin is a product of ignorance, and love is a product of knowledge. And the more we leave sin and we join love, it's just a product of experience and knowledge. Because the more knowledge you have, the more you're gonna love. The more it's like, if you love, it's so obvious in why do you love your kid? Why do you love your kid? Even if he's adopted, like, it doesn't have to be your blood or your genetic makeup. Even if you adopt someone, they're not related to you, but you see them grow, you care for them, you gain a knowledge of that person that's deeper than anything else, and you understand that person, and you you begin to love that person because you have more knowledge of that person. And so the more knowledge we have, usually the more love. Sometimes it can grow into hate. But hate is also a product of ignorance, of not knowing what's behind the conscience. What is the true intentions of hate? What are the true intentions of hate? What are the true intentions of evil? There's always something behind that initial evil act. There's like a subconscious intention behind the conscious intention, which is always love. Love is always the final intention behind any act. Not consciously. It might not be conscious, but it is subconscious. And so justice always exists. What happens with the innocent, though? So in a sense, we are all innocent, and we're all protected by God, because God protects the innocent. God protects us. And what happens to the innocent? The innocent are taken into levels of subconscious to deal with pain and suffering. And that's how God has mercy on us. But there is sometimes a predator-prey relationship, where there's a predator, someone seeking to do harm, and someone who's just an innocent bystander. Now, we believe that we can overcome that, of being innocent bystanders, by being within the Spirit, by remaining within the Spirit. Then we're no longer victims. We're no longer innocent bystanders. But we gain in power, in consciousness, and in actual power in this world. We gain in our power as long as we remain within the Spirit, even in the face of evil. We remain within that spirit of unconditional love, even in the face of evil. But if we're not at that conscience level, and we allow fear to overcome us, and we do succumb to evil, and we succumb and we become fearful, and we like I just became fearful. That was a big one. When we do that, then God is there. God's always there on a subconscious level. And somehow we lose that consciousness. We go into a level of unconsciousness. And that's where the protection, that's where the comfort. That's why God's the great comforter. And the same thing happens with the predator, though. The predator falls into a level of unconsciousness as it commits evil acts, and it doesn't know what it's doing. It can't feel what it's doing. And so I think I have touched on this before. Got a big storm ahead of me, in front of me. But the fact that justice always exists is an essential part of understanding, or your ability to remain within the Spirit. Because when you think something's unjust, you always rebel. So if you think like the government's unjust, or the system, something within the system's unjust, or if you think your boss is unjust, or if you think your parents are unjust, or anything is unjust, there's a rebellion, right? It creates an off balance. There's an off balance reaction to injustice. So you sense injustice, you react the opposite way in rebellion. And love can be an act of rebellion, but not in this sense, not if you sense injustice. Love always comes when there's a sense of justice, like even if you're bringing this justice with your love. So it's important to know that justice always exists in God's kingdom and in this kingdom on a deeper level. And even though there is hunger, there is suffering, there is poverty, extreme levels of poverty, extreme levels of suffering, psychological suffering, self-medication of people in developed countries is a sign of extreme suffering, because that's why people are medicating themselves, because they feel pain. And so all of this tells us that there is a lot of pain going on. There's a lot of, and so we haven't arrived at the meeting of consciousness and subconsciousness. We haven't arrived at that. The kingdom's not here yet, right? God's kingdom is not here yet in this conscious reality. But we can bring it about by having faith in God's kingdom in this conscious reality. And that's what we have to start doing, is having faith in the kingdom of God, where justice always exists, and that exists in this reality as well. So the faith, even though you can't perceive it, you can't perceive that justice always exists in this reality. But if you ponder on it, if you pray about it, if you feel it in your heart, then ask God for guidance if this is true. Ask God if it is true that justice always exists. And I struggled a lot with that in the beginning, but it was kind of a revelation that came to me. It was an answer. I sought out answers, and answers arrived. And that was the answer. And as soon as you believe, as soon as you start believing that, everything starts to fall in place. So as soon as you believe that justice always exists, and you start viewing the world from that perspective, then everything starts to fall into place. All the other concepts of the kingdom of God, all the other ideas, they start to fall into place. So I hope you guys can hear this video. There's a lot of thunder going on. But so justice always exists. That is the idea for tonight. Hope you guys can ponder on that. You can read more about it on my website. But more than reading and listening, it's very important for one to seek out your own answers. You can receive some guidance, but if you receive the revelation directly, it's much more powerful. And then it lives within you as a living idea, and it doesn't just vanish in a few weeks. So seek revelation, seek personal revelation from this universal intelligence that's with you every day, always. It's always with you, but you have to seek it out. You have to be silent. You have to ask questions. You have to open yourself to change your belief system, your worldview. You have to be open to that. If you're not open to change, and you have a worldview that's like you're stuck in your beliefs, nothing, and you're asking God. So let's say you're stuck in your beliefs, right? You have an ideology that's set in stone. And then you ask God for guidance. He can't penetrate that barrier that you have. It's like a barrier. That ideology that you have is like a barrier for understanding. God can't give you understanding, because as soon as he's trying to give you the understanding, you block it with your ideology. So the ideas are coming. You ask the question, ideas are coming in. God is trying to project these solutions, these answers to you. And then all of a sudden, what does your ideology say? Nope, that's not true. Because of your established ideology. So don't be afraid to, if you're living in extreme levels of pain and of suffering, and you want answers, don't be afraid to change your deepest ideologies about politics, about religion, about worldview, about what is real, what is not real. Because that, if you let those things go, and you're open to change, then God can just flow through you. And if your one and only ideology is love, you'll never go wrong with that. That's never an ideology that you can go wrong with. So if you're going to have an ideology, have the ideology of love. Now, sometimes love is misconstrued, and it's used like as a control mechanism, etc., right? But love conquers all in the end. So justice always exists. There's a lot of questions that still remain for us, but we've received a lot of answers. So that's about it for tonight, everyone. Good night. Hope you enjoyed the storm. Later.